Heritage Line Station now needs a footbridge, but what should it be based on? In today's video, I'll show you some research and show you how I built it. Hi everyone, I'm Martin and welcome back to Donnington Castle Model Railway. If you're a new viewer, then welcome to the channel. If you're a returning viewer, then you will know that in my last video I said what I was going to be making my next video on, and you probably also know that that's why this video isn't about that. Although in this case, it's not about me getting distracted by other things or procrastinating on anything. It's just that the scenic area over on the side here that I'm working on is just taking a little bit longer. I didn't want to rush out a video when I wasn't finished. But I have finished another exciting project over on the Heritage Line Station. So I thought that's what I'd make the video about today. And that is the footbridge. I'm sure many of you are like me and have a drawer that's full of secondhand kits and bits of kits that you finished, but the bits were left over and you didn't want to throw them out because you thought they might come in useful. Well, I'm in that situation, and I think I've got a few bits that I could use to make a footbridge with. So what I was thinking about is whether I can kitbash a footbridge or whether that is not going to happen and I'll need to scratch build one. So let's see where that journey takes us. But the first thing we need to do is do a little bit of research and find out exactly what kind of footbridge would look good on the Heritage Line Station. Now, the Heritage Line Station is supposedly of Great Western origin. So I started out by having a look around for examples of GWR footbridges. And it turns out there are quite a few available online, particularly in 00. These examples are from Elcut Creative. This is their website, so you can see that they've got this example here, which appears to be fairly typical of GWR footbridges. From what I've seen, you get them looking like this, but also that same basic pattern with a covering over the top as well. For me, it's not really the look I was going for, and also I was thinking if I can find something a bit different but also prototypical, then that might be better. So let's have a look in the local area and see what we can find. The three main sources of inspiration come from the railways in this area, which were the Lambourn Valley Railway, the Didcot, Newbury and Southampton, and the Berks and Hants, of which the latter is unfortunately still the only one still in existence. Now, the one station that's common to all of those is Newbury. And I've got this picture here of Newbury from, I think this was 2008, around then. And this shows the old footbridge. Now, this is something to keep in mind because this is the design of footbridge that I, as I've said before, I'm going to be using on the main station building. Now, this footbridge dates from, I think, about 1906 and was changed from an original GWR style one when the station was remodeled and when the two through lines were added in the middle. That means that this bridge has quite a long span and the design obviously reflects that. So that's why I'm going to be using this over on the other station. So unfortunately, we can't use this because I'd like to use something different than on the Heritage Line. Let's have a look at the Lambourn Valley Railway and the footbridges of that line. And unfortunately, as far as I can tell, there are none. You might argue that Newbury is on that line, but if a train went from Newbury to Lambourn, it never passed underneath that footbridge. So if you know differently, please do let me know, because I'm absolutely fascinated by this now. But yeah, no footbridges on the Lambourn Valley Railway. So where to next? Well, I was thinking a good place to look next is the Didcot, Newbury and Southampton. So let's start at the south end, down at Winchester Chesil. And from this photo, which comes from an old postcard, you can see that there is what I'll call a classic GWR footbridge in the background there. So I'm looking for something a little bit more interesting than that. If we can't find one, then maybe we'll have to come back and revisit this idea. But let's keep moving up the line. As far as I'm aware, well, I certainly couldn't find any photos of any between Winchester Chesil up to Newbury. For example, at Whitchurch, there was an underpass. A lot of the stations, I don't think, were busy enough to warrant them. Newbury we've mentioned, so north from Newbury up to Didcot. First station we reach where I believe there's a footbridge is Hampstead Norris. And I know that from this overhead line diagram. which shows a footbridge. It seems to have quite a long span there, but I haven't seen any photos of that. Heading north, we then get to Compton, which does have a footbridge, and I've got a couple of photos of that. The first one here shows what I would call kind of half-height sides, and it looks like these were then removed later, as you can see from this later photo. I mean, it's different from a standard GWR design, but it doesn't really feel like it's the right thing for the Heritage Line station. So we'll keep it in mind, but we'll keep looking. Now going north, we then get to Didcot. As far as I'm aware, Didcot's never had a footbridge. At the moment, it has an underpass. I've not been able to find any photos with any evidence of there being a footbridge at Didcot. So that really leaves us now with the Berks and Hants. And Hungerford, I believe, has a GWR style footbridge, and also Thiel did have in the past, as we can see here. So this is a 1975 photo taken by David Canning, and it's a screenshot from a video from Gordon Sutton's YouTube channel. And Gordon has been doing an amazing job recently publishing lots of David's photos, which I believe a lot of them have never been seen publicly or published before. So I'm going to leave a link up to Gordon's channel in the top right-hand corner. If you are interested in old railway photos, then please do go take a look. I'm not sure if he'll have published it by the time this video goes out, but when I saw him down at Southampton, he said that he was working on another video for another section of the Berks in Hand. So that will be very interesting to see. But this photo of Thiel shows again what I'll call this typical GWR style footbridge. So by this point, I'm starting to feel a little bit like I'm going to have to look further afield or just accept maybe a slightly more common design until I came across this photo of Thatcham. Now, I believe this photo is taken probably early 1960s. We've still got steam on the Great Western, and we've still got the old station building at Thatcham, which got knocked down late 60s, I believe. Now, Thatcham, for such a small station, has actually had at least 3 footbridges in its life. The current one went in when electrification happened. The previous one was put in, I believe, early to mid 80s when the new station building was put in. And then before that, though, there was this example here. So it's a little bit unusual insofar as the I guess their ascents for the stairs go all the way up parallel to the track, and then the section running across the track is completely level. Which is a little bit different from the GWR style and from some southern footbridges as well. So this feels like quite an interesting bridge to have a go at modelling. And I think the next step in this process, now that I've identified something that would be worth having a go at, is to work out whether I'm going to need to scratch build this or whether there is an easier approach with a little bit of kit bashing. So let's take a look at that next. The main reason for thinking about kit bashing in the first place was the fact that I picked this up secondhand off Hatton's many years ago, thinking, oh, I'm sure this will come in handy on the layout somewhere, as you do. So it's just been sat there. And I thought, well, maybe I can use this as the basis for a footbridge, even if it's not exactly like this. And as you can see, this is a southern footbridge. And in some ways looks nothing like the one I'm trying to build. So let's just have a quick look at the instructions and see if kit bashing is even an option here. And I think certainly some of the pieces could well be used. So the lower steps and that stanchion tower could in theory be used. Where in this case the bridge then turns a corner and goes up and over, I could potentially reroute that so it all heads straight up. That would then mean making either another cross piece to go across the tracks or extending this one. My initial thought was just to give that a go, to try and design and 3D print a new top section to see if that was going to work or not. And then my hand was forced slightly. I had done a very basic design of a piece. I was in the process of changing the nozzle on my 3D printer down to a 0.2 mil to try and get this really fine and looking really good. And something went wrong, and I could smell burning, and it turns out that the TFT display and possibly the main board as well of the 3D printer had blown, and so that stopped that whole process right there. Getting that fixed is a bit of expense and effort, so I thought to myself, well, can I just scratch build this, and can I also do that just using the laser cutter? So it's a little bit like modeling with one hand tied behind your back, but I thought I would give it a go. And knowing I wasn't going to kitbash the Southern Footbridge, I just thought I'd build that because I thought that would make quite a nice reference for anything I was going to build. Because remember, as far as making the bridge the same as Thatcham, that one photo is all the reference material that I've been able to find. So here is that first footbridge all assembled. I've not added the lights to it. I probably won't be adding them anyway. And I've also not added these baffles or deflectors or whatever they are that fit underneath it for redirecting smoke from trains passing underneath. I will actually use those on my footbridge because the one in Thatcham has them, as you can see in the photo. So if I do use this Southern Footbridge on my layout, the story is really going to be that there were plans for electrification were well underway when the footbridge was put in place, and therefore they just didn't get installed. Because I don't believe there's something that you can easily take down or would take down off a footbridge after the end of the steam. But either way, if I use that footbridge, they won't have any of those deflectors on them. That kind of sets kit bashing to one side and moves us squarely into the realm of scratch building. So let's have a look at the design process. As usual on the channel, we are here in Lightburn, which is where I do most of my design work. So let me talk you through the pieces involved here. Green is 2 mil MDF. The dark blue I have made out of, it's about a 1mm card. And then light blue is engraved, so don't worry too much about that for now. So in the main structure of the bridge, we have the two sides here, so the inner and outer. You can see that I'm engraving rivet detail and the lines between these panels on them. But I'm doing that on the inside only. On the outside, if you look on the photograph, you'll see that that is comes from the I don't know way to describe it, but effectively the metalwork on the outside. We've also then got a base piece. We've then got our stanchions. I did start making these so these slot together, but I actually found because they're not going to be covered in anything, they're just going to be painted. I didn't think that would look too good. So they are just separate pieces glued together. That's nice and easy. Again, we've got sides with, again, on the inside, the rivet detail just etched in. These are the steps. These get stuck. Let me see if this is one piece on the inside of these, and then the steps fit on top of them. So that's nice and easy. So the handrails. Again, I'm just following the pitch of the stairs to get those. The platform, I guess, for where the stairs level off there. And then this is then card. So this is then the detail on the outside. You can see I've got the rivet detail on here. So this will get stuck onto the outside of the model to give some texture and hopefully make it look a little bit like metal. These are the ribs that go across the deck as it goes across the lines. So these are alternately spaced between these bowed out ones and these straight ones. So again, I'm going to replicate that. And then these are the So these go on top of the sides, and again, they just make it look like those metal sections that the bridges are made out of. In here, this is some wooden decking that's going to go. So if you imagine the main structure of the bridge, I'm assuming is made of metal, and then on that you would most probably put a wooden surface to make that less slippy. So that's just what these pieces are, etched, and then some wooden steps to go in here. This will make a lot more sense when you see it put together. But for a footbridge, it actually breaks down into quite nice pieces. So I think this is going to look okay. And this is the first set of pieces from the laser cutter. Just a couple of things I'll mention. First is, in terms of sizing for this, I used that ratio kit, obviously measurements from the layout, and then that photograph, just to get a sense of what size, for example, those panels are, based on obviously what the width of the real bridge is versus the number of panels, that kind of thing. In terms of assembly, that's going to be fairly straightforward, so I won't show you every step of that. I will build the main bridge structure, and then I will fit all the decorations onto it. So that means I will paint everything that's MDF, effectively light stone first, and then I will paint all of the card dark stone, and then when everything's painted and dry, I'll then assemble it. Fairly straightforward once you see it. It should be fairly easy for you to understand how it all goes together. This is now the main structure glued together, rocket card glue as usual for this. So first of all, I made stanchion towers, and then I made the effectively attached the bridge surfaces, and then dropped the steps in. Standing that side by side with the kit-built Southern Bridge, you can see how the measurements have translated across. So it's the same height, and the pitch of the stairs is pretty much the same. As you can see with my bridge, it goes all the way up parallel to the track before it then goes level across the tracks. And it's also a bit wider because of this idea that we're crossing effectively an old broad gauge station. Next challenge is going to be underneath, because at the moment there's light getting through with those steps. So I have an idea to use some filler for that. This is a bit of an experiment, so we'll see what happens. And I decided to try out using jointing compound, which is a very fine filler. Now, that worked quite well. It may have benefited from a second coat just to fill in some of the irregularities, because jointing compound has a tendency just to sink slightly. Depends how wet you get the mixture when you add it in there. But it's not the worst thing in the world, and you're not going to be looking under there, so it's blocked off all that light bleed from the steps. So I think that's a fairly good solution. I might not use it in the future, but it's fine for now. And this is the first step of painting. So my footbridge is just had a couple of coats of light stone all over with this, except for the very bottom step, which is in concrete. And then the southern one has just had rail match concrete all over it. And then we'll worry about weathering later. A lot of the detail on my footbridge I'm going to be doing in dark stone, but you'll see that fairly shortly. And this is where I got to with the southern region concrete bridge. I started weathering it, but it's still got a lot of work to do to it because that's not looking particularly good at the moment. But I'm not sure if this is going to go on the layout at the moment. It's nice to be able just to put over running lines and just check the proportions of things, but otherwise it's not going to be used, so I'm not going to invest any more time in this right now, but it may reappear in the future. Okay, things have moved on quite a bit since you last saw this, so let me talk you through all of that. The outer framework has been painted in dark stone and stuck over, so that gives that impression, hopefully, of these all being metal panels constructed together, riveted together. Those bits of card along the tops have been added again to give that, hopefully, that illusion of metal work. We've got some handrails in here. This is just, again, a very thin piece of wood laser cut, painted black and stuck onto the side. I did think about putting some little handrail holders onto it, but it just became too fiddly and didn't really seem to add too much. Then I've added a wooden decking into it. Again, painted dark brown, and then with some weathering powders over the top of that, just to give some tone and a little bit of a distressed look to that wood. If I turn it over, you'll see that I've added those deflectors or baffles or whatever they're called, and added some weathering, so some black wash first of all to get into effectively panel wash to get into the all the nooks and crannies, and then some smoke weathering powder and also some rust weathering powder. The rust over the rivet heads effectively to give them a sense of a rusty look, and the smoke colour along the panels and, as you saw, underneath where obviously the smoke is going to have built up, just to give it really grimy look. The idea that it's been sat at the station for a long time and not seeing much love. Based on the span of this, I think I am going to need to put a central support in the middle of it, but I will do that once the platform surfaces have all been done and I know exactly where it's going, because then I'll be able to measure accurately down. So that will drop down there, and I'll probably put a concrete plinth effectively for it to sit on. So, good progress, and I'm really happy with how that's turned out. Let's just pop that onto the station, just so you can see roughly how that's going to look, although obviously the station is far from finished. And there we go in situ, so you can see we've got plenty of space for passengers to pass by on the platform. Nice clearance over the running lines. Yeah, I think that will look really good. A couple of figures maybe stood on that bridge or crossing it. But then I think that will look even better once these platform surfaces are all finished, and that can sort of be blended into the whole area. But yeah, I'm really happy with how that turned out. I think it was a good call to Scratchbuild in the end, even though my hand was slightly forced by 3D printer woes. But yeah, all good. So I'm really happy with how that footbridge has turned out. I was a little bit worried when I had to turn to the laser cutter to make effectively a metal structure, but I think that's not turned out too bad. I think that'll look even better once that's properly in place on the platforms and we've got trains running underneath it. But that's for another video. I'm very much hoping that the next video will be the scenics over on this side of the layout, just to the side of me. I'm getting quite close to that being done, so hopefully that I'll be able to share that with you fairly soon. But thank you very much for watching. If you're not a subscriber, please do think about hitting that subscribe button. That always helps the channel. And please do leave your thoughts and comments as always. They're really useful for me to improve my modeling, but they also really motivate me to keep building the layout and to keep sharing it with you. So thank you very much in advance for those. But I will catch you all on another video very soon. Bye for now.